Welcome to Denton's Trade Notes, a series that highlights topical trade issues with our experts around the world. I'm Stephenson, a senior associate from Denton's Toronto office, and I'm here today with Roger Matthews, an international trade partner in our London office. Roger, let's talk Brexit post-trade agreements. What is the status between the EU and the UK negotiations right now?
That's a very good question. So we're recording this on Thursday morning. Our Prime Minister and the European Commission President had just had their dinner last night. And I think the honest answer is it's not looking very positive. In hard terms, about the only thing that they're reported as having been able to agree on is that the end of Sunday is the absolute deadline for seeing if it's possible to reach agreement. So right now, the negotiators are back, spending the last few days seeing if they can even out the outstanding issues, which, just by way of reminder, are principally about the arrangements for fishing rights and access in particular to UK waters, and level playing field issues, and what in particular happens going forward if the UK or the EU wants to increase its standards in a particular area and the other doesn't want to reciprocate. The UK is particularly concerned if the EU, for example, increases the requirements for environmental protections in a way that the UK doesn't want to agree to, but it risks being penalised in, for example, in tariffs if it were to choose not to, and it perceives that as therefore risking being tied into having to follow EU rules, which it wants to avoid. So we are all watching for Sunday evening as the critical deadline.
So what does that mean for businesses on both sides, UK businesses and EU businesses that are trying to prepare for the end of the year?
Yeah, so I think, following last night, the EU has gone ahead today and announced its no deal planning provisions. It's essentially the first indication that they're really looking towards no deal as the more likely possibility. And I think everyone should be planning for that, and probably many businesses have been planning for that for some time. Key features are they have to assume, therefore, that import tariffs will come into play for the goods in relation to which tariffs apply. There will be inevitably a range of customs delays because all the sort of the procedures that might have been included for lighter operations at borders that will not come into play. There are plenty of areas, of course, that were never going to be covered by a free trade agreement. Very large areas of trade and services were never likely to be covered by it. They didn't seem to have been a priority for the UK government, but principally it's trade in goods where the priority had been for a seamless trade between UK and EU. It looks like that's no longer going to come into force. And then there's some knock-on effects, and one of them is there was meant to be a security agreement that was, I think, in negotiators' eyes, linked to securing the trade agreement, and other aspects like equivalence for financial services seem to have been contingent on the trade agreement being reached. So some of those areas where I think it was also hoped that there might be some progress, those also will be knocked further down the track.
Outside of the EU negotiations, how are the other negotiations going that the UK has undertaken?
So it's been looking at a number of them. It's been looking at carrying over, where possible, existing EU free trade agreements and applying them as direct bilateral free trade agreements with the UK. It's calling those continuity agreements. It's secured those with quite a lot of countries, generally countries with whom the value of trade is not that large, but it's secured quite a lot of them. By no means all of the ones that the EU has, but quite a lot. The particular focuses on the continuity side have been Japan and Canada, where it has secured agreements. And then in terms of new free trade agreements for countries where the EU doesn't currently have, one particular focus has been Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. So it has now got Japan and Canada, but for Australia, New Zealand, and for the US, which I think was its big prize, those discussions, those negotiations are still ongoing and don't look likely to be completed before the end of this year for sure, but possibly not for a little while. One new development this morning, Singapore, I gather, is the latest agreement to have been reached. That news has just come out very recently. So there is progress, but with Australia, New Zealand, and the US still prizes to be pursued.
Wow. More specifically about the Canada-UK TCA, the Continuity Agreement, what do we currently know now that we, I guess, just have gotten the text out yesterday?
Yeah, so I mean, I won't go into the details of the full text, which I admit I haven't read in full since last night. But the key messages I think are these: that in principle, it's a carryover of CETA into the UK, so that the basic model is CETA is carried over. Say for the if you like the list places where there's a departure from it. There are some departures. The UK hasn't been able to carry over everything. So just by way of example, it hasn't secured the ability to carry over the CETA quota for cheese imports into Canada. So there will be cheese imports from the UK that under CETA would have benefited from a tariff-free rate quota, which now will not. But by and large, the CETA concept has been carried over. I think the key thing to understand, though, is that this is designed as a temporary carryover measure, and it's very clear that the intention is that the negotiations between the UK and Canada will start next year for, if you like, a longer term, perhaps more bespoke free trade agreements that may still start from the CETA model, but will look to be better tailored and to be completed in a less rushed time frame. So I think this is really to be regarded as a holding agreement while that is done. And there are clues in some of the deadlines of some of the quotas that are carried over that perhaps the end of 2023 is the target deadline by which the UK and Canada will be looking to complete the negotiations on a longer term agreement.
Thank you, Roger. Highly interesting for everyone who's looking at trade with the UK right now, something we'll all obviously be looking intently on moving forward. That's it for the first episode of Denton's Trade Notes. Please feel free to come back, as we'll be back with more episodes.